One cannot put Bangkok into words. Perhaps the best way to describe it is a city where one can do anything, regardless of whether it's beneficial for them or ethical or sensible. However, this plethora of possibility is part of what gives Bangkok its insane energy and vibrant culture. When you remove limits, one suddenly is capable of anything, and Bangkok is certainly a city that exemplifies that. Every city has crazy malls, amazing architecture, great food, wonderful cafes, plus its own history. But what gives Bangkok its unique appeal? I would have to say it's the immeasurable variety and juxtaposition of everything. You have millions of locals, but also lots of expats and tourists moving through on the regular. You have multi-billion-dollar shopping malls and extreme poverty. You have arguably questionable trades running alongside some of the biggest businesses in the world. With such a diversity of people and ideas, there is no option to feel like you don't belong or that your interests and desires aren't catered for in some way. Whatever you are traveling for, you are likely to find it in some shape in Bangkok, which is what I think makes it such an alluring destination for so many people. For me, I wanted to experience a place unlike anywhere I'd ever been before. Coming from New Zealand with a population of 5 million, aka not even half of the city of Bangkok, I knew that being in such a big city with so much going on would be an insight into a whole new way of living and being in the world. I spent just under 2 weeks here, exploring classic places like Wat ARUN, the Grand Palace, the Golden Mount and Chinatown, plus shopping malls such as Iconsiam and Central Embassy. I had my mind blown eating delicious meals such as Michelin star mango sticky rice, a variety of street food, and I also found remarkable cafes and coffee along the way. At the end of it all, I still felt like I hadn't even seen half of what Bangkok has to offer, but I was so grateful for all the time I spent there. In this video, I'm going to share my experience and recommendations, but I'll just quickly introduce myself if you haven't been here before. My name's ARUN, I'm 22 years old, and around 5 months ago, I quit my job to travel the world, and I have been traveling Southeast Asia since. So today I'm going to take you along on the crazy ride, show you all the places I visited, and basically make the ultimate Bangkok travel vlog. I hope you enjoy. After an early morning wake up in Laos, it was finally time to head back to Thailand, but this time to go to Bangkok, a city I had never been to before and had heard so much about. After a bit of strife, I managed to make my way through to my hostel from the airport. Although it's not very much in the Thai psyche, I did end up getting sushi for lunch. However, I quickly moved back into the stereotype by getting some pad Thai for dinner, followed up by a McFlurry that looked extremely interesting and actually tasted surprisingly good. I don't know what it is, but trying big food chains in different countries I find very fascinating. So I'm heading today to Iconsiam, one of the biggest shopping malls, to A, buy an iPhone, B, check it out, and C, what else is around, because that's my agenda. When I arrived, it literally blew my mind. It was so big that I couldn't handle it, and I just went and hid in Zara. I've never actually brought anything from there, it was just familiar. This place is crazy, it's so big, and I knew in Zara because I know about it. I've been there before. Yeah. The thing about Iconsiam is just that there are so many shops, lots of really well-known big brands, but also a lot of niche stuff that I hadn't seen before. Whilst it was really cool realizing that the mall itself cost over 2 billion NZ dollars to build, really kind of threw me into a weird funk, because I was then wondering what the daily financial turnover must be, and also couldn't that money have been better spent elsewhere? After picking up the iPhone, I beelined for the downstairs food court, which was very crowded and also very expensive, as I kind of forgot that it was the weekend. I got some mango sticky rice with coconut ice cream, which was absolutely delicious, and then continued having my mind blown as I progressed towards the observation deck on the 7th floor.
What I want to know is, why are there two Starbucks in the same mall? Does that not tell you how big the mall is? There's one on the 3rd floor and one on the 7th floor. Of course there is.
This place had incredible views and I was absolutely astounded by everything I saw all the time. When I was done and a bit hungry, I headed back to my hostel where I checked out the rooftop and also found a copy of Bridget Jones's diary in the room, which I spent quite some time reading. A very enjoyable and unfortunately rather too relatable character in some ways. I then went and got pad see ew for dinner, which I hadn't tried before, and I think I definitely had mixed feelings at first, as I'll be honest and say I'm basic and very attached to pad thai, but it did end up being delicious. The next day I slept in as I was pretty tired and overwhelmed by the shopping bonanza, but I actually then went back to Iconsiam as I ended up buying the wrong iPhone. Turns out that the 128GB does not support 4K in ProRes log, which is the main reason I wanted to buy it, and don't worry if you don't understand anything I just said, but basically I got it solved and now I have the 256GB version. As a resident film buff, I also wanted to watch Boy and the Heron, which was a pretty solid Ghibli film, I have to say.
There's 2 escalators inside the cinema. Wild. Wild. That is what you want in your cinema. 2 escalators. Lots of cinemas.
I then grabbed a cheap 50 baht lunch of chicken and rice because, you know, I just spent all my money on an iPhone. Then also got a matcha ice cream, which cost more than my lunch. If I'm honest, prices here do my head in because the mains are cheaper than the sweet stuff, and as someone with a sweet tooth, I think this is absolutely ridiculous. At the end of the day, I was rather tired and ended up visiting a pad thai place that I went to because it was only a 200-meter walk from my hostel. However, it became one of my most frequented places as the food was fantastic, and also they put peanuts on the tables. You can add as much as you want, and for me, I don't think pad thai can have enough peanuts, so great situation.
As a creature of habit, it is only fitting that I go back to the exact same place for pad thai again, because A, it was cheap, and B, oh my gosh, it was absolutely delicious.
Overall, I did find my first few days in Bangkok to be pretty overwhelming and a bit more on the stressful side, so whilst I really like the city, it may be a bit too much for me.
Today we're heading to the Chatuchak. We're going to the weekend market, which is famous for being big and cheap, and not really that cheap, more likely than not, but we'll see.
I arrived using Grab Bike, but obviously the metro and the skyline go nearby as well, so it's not too difficult to get there using Google Maps. When I arrived, I decided to walk around the outside road first before going into all the little alleyways, as it's pretty easy to get lost in there. So I started off simple by going around the outside and sniffing things. Unfortunately, the prices do go up and down a lot. For example, the incense was pretty cheap, but the bookstore was very expensive. It can be hard to tell what a good deal actually is, but I think it ultimately depends on what you feel like is a good deal and how it compares to the prices back in whatever country you're from. If you're looking for something very specific, I would say you're probably better to just wait and wander instead, because there's literally everything there, and trying to find anything too specific is kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. There are different general sections, but even within those there's a lot of variety and you may not be able to find what you're looking for.
I just got my first purchase, some linen shorts. I wasn't expecting to buy anything, honestly, but here we are. This is wild. This place just goes on and on and on. I feel like I'm gonna need to come back the second day. Like, I've been here, I don't even know how long, but this is wild.
What I really liked about this particular market is that it's not just a bunch of stuff that kind of feels like it's been shipped in for China. There is a lot of new stuff, but it feels more local, and there's also a lot of vintage reworked goods and innovative designs. There were a lot of really cool bags, which was probably one of my favorite things I kept seeing around, and there were even entire stores dedicated to things like Sesame Street and The Simpsons. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, but I ended up buying a couple of things like this Russian ugly arch hat, because I tried one on in France last year and didn't buy it, and have wanted one since. One of the most surprising things for me was actually the art section. I was really impressed by a lot of the different local artists, and if I were to live in Bangkok or could pay the probably exorbitant shipping costs, I actually think I would have bought something. I'm also very upset I didn't buy one of these mugs. I need to go back to Bangkok specifically for the purpose of buying one, but also if I'd brought it with me, it would have been destroyed at some stage on my long-term travels anyway. After all this walking around and shopping, I had worked up quite a bit of an appetite. There's an entire food court section and there were so many things I wanted to try, so I ended up with a girl lunch, or whatever you want to call it. I got a pork skewer to start, which was amazing, and then some quail eggs with cabbage that really just tasted like regular eggs. I also got an orange juice and some good old mango sticky rice. I then ended up in a floral zone on my way to find the clock tower, which took me quite a while.
I finally have found the clock tower in the centre of the market, and it's really bright. I should have my sunglasses on, but when you go out of the sun then you can't see anything, so yeah, I finally found it though, and it's hot, it's boiling.
Once again, there is a never-ending maze of stores. I ended up buying this denim bag that I have since been using and abusing everywhere.
It's actually so easy to get lost here, it's not even funny. I'm freaking going around in circles half the time. I'm lost again.
After getting lost a few times, I managed to make my way out of the labyrinth and then headed back to my hostel.
So I booked my grab and came back. I think I spent like 5 or 6 hours there, but I think I saw everything, just too tired, too hot.
I got an early dinner as I had spent around 7 hours at the market in total. I had some pad thai, which isn't the best I've had but was still filling after the many miles of walking I did. I had an absolute blast at the market, but I would definitely recommend to bring lots of water, as more likely than not you're going to be there for a long time. Also 5 baht coins to use the bathroom and a decent sized bag or backpack to shovel your purchases into. Also make sure you grab a map on your way in or take a photo of it, and doing things section by section should save you from getting too lost.
today I'm heading to the Golden Temple, the flower market, the bridge, a cafe I wanted to check out, a few things, but starting with the temple, which I can see from here. Huh. Awesome.
My hostel was actually right near the canal that runs alongside where the Grand Mount is, so I had a lovely quiet walk away from the heavy traffic to get there. I found it amusing that I'd driven past this about 5 times without realising what it was, but so often we only see what we're looking for. I paid the cash-only 100 baht entrance fee and headed up the many steps to the temple. Even though I've been to quite a few places around the city, this was a completely different viewpoint of Bangkok that I started to see as I headed up. I found an area with a bunch of bells that you walk past, and it reminded me that all human beings are essentially the same.
Turns out all human beings are little shits in the same way as each other, just like making loud noises for no reason.
We're all still children at heart as far as I'm concerned. After some charming people watching and obviously making a clamour myself, I continued up the steps all the way to the temple. This view cannot be put into words. Even though the hill is not really that high, because everything else in the city is flat, it offers incredible views, and it's also lovely as there's no high-rise buildings around like a lot of the other viewpoints you might see the city from. When I felt like I'd absorbed everything I could from the place, I headed back down the stairs to explore some of the other areas around the main temple, as there's actually a whole complex surrounding the mount. I found lots of different beautiful areas, which reminded me that even when you're going to look at something very big and obvious, don't forget to keep an open eye, because you may miss many of the small beautiful things surrounding it. I got a smoothie on my way out as I wandered down the nearby streets, which seemed to be mainly for woodworking, and I love noticing all these little shops or stores or whatever you actually call them. However, as I wandered through the streets, I did have a destination in mind, which was Roots Coffee. I'd seen a few people recommend this place, so I decided to check it out, and my goodness, it was a lovely coffee house with some delicious coffee and also some of the most lovely staff ever. From here, I made my way along the Ong Ang Canal down towards the Chao Paraya Sky Park.
So much cheaper than everywhere else I've been going. I'm in by the Ong Ang Canal on my way to the flower market. This is good. This is very good.
I had driven over this a few times and thought it was pretty cool, so I decided to walk across it and check out the view over the river. I was surprised to find it virtually completely deserted, as when I had gone across at sunset, there were girls with flowers everywhere taking photos, which I'm guessing they got from the nearby flower market, which is where I headed afterwards. Unfortunately, this was a little bit of a letdown, as it's not a market per se, just a bunch of people selling flowers all in the same area, but it would be a lovely place to buy some flowers for whatever reason. From here, I made my way through to the old Siam Plaza, a well-known shopping mall, but I was really there to go to the bathroom, and I was also quite hungry. There's actually a really good food court there, and I picked up a not very Thai thing to get, but a cheesy garlic bread, and oh my gosh, I really needed this. It fixed all my cravings. From here, I made my way down to the giant swing, which I mainly just wanted to go to take a photo there. There was no good reason other than that, just that it's an interesting landmark and looks quite cool. But from there, it was time to go and get my Michelin star mango sticky rice at Khao San Sticky Rice. Technically this is street food, as there's nowhere to sit inside, and it did cost 120 baht. I was pretty skeptical about how good this would be, as I had the best mango sticky rice of my life in Vang Veng, and I thought it would be difficult to beat, particularly with the portion size and the price back there. But I do think, based on the taste, this mango sticky rice really took the cake. It was well worth the money. The rice just had this slightly salty touch to it, and with all the sweetness and the mango, it was just absolutely perfect and the best possible way to finish off my day. Today I'm heading to check out some of the malls that I haven't been to before, but we're going to go to Rise Coffee first. So essentially there is an area where there's a group of about 5 to 6 different malls which you can easily access using the SkyTrain, but unfortunately I'm not near any of the lines, so I took a grab there instead. This place is hectic. There's so many malls, so many streets, overpasses, shops. I'm scared again. I'm very scared. However, my first stop before even considering going to many of the different malls was to get some coffee at Rise Coffee's flagship store. This minimally designed space is just a few minutes walk from the shopping megalopolis. Being in such a relaxing space was a great start before heading into all the hectic busyness. If you're new here, hi, my name's ARUN, I'm 22, from New Zealand, and a few months ago I quit my job to travel the world. So far, I've been to 4 different countries, including Thailand. Well, obviously. I had a great cappuccino and enjoyed the relaxing environment before heading to Grand Embassy, which is very much a high-end mall. More than anything, I like to visit shopping malls for the architecture and see the layout, the aesthetics, the design. This is kind of what I go to do rather than shop. Fortunately, if you don't feel like splashing out on all of the luxury brands, they have an epic food area on the top floor with some insane views. After browsing through their book collection, I stopped at Coffeeology for their famous white cloud coffee. Even though it was pricey, I'm not gonna lie, this was probably one of the best coffees I've had. The burnt meringue on top sold me more than anything else, because I love coffees that add things and kind of change the experience or the flavour. Next up was Central World Mall. This was like a mixture of different stores, from some of the really high-end ones to very low priced, which I really liked, and I think overall this is probably one of the best ones to visit. I was kind of hungry, so I saw Krispy Kreme and thought that it might keep me happy for a while. I tried one I've never had before and it was surprisingly good. If you're new here, you may not know that I'm from New Zealand, and when we first got Krispy Kreme, which wasn't actually that many years ago, people would bring boxes back from Auckland Airport, which is the only place you could get it. It was wild and very overrated. I then stumbled across a bookstore and happily went browsing. Unfortunately, they didn't have the one Murakami book I wanted, but I did leave with The Secret History as I'd been hoping to find it in an op shop, but unfortunately have not, and I've wanted to read it for quite a few years, so I figured I would bite the bullet. Having now read this book as well, I have to say that it is such a phenomenal book, and I really wish I had read it earlier. Next up is arguably one of the most famous cafes in Bangkok, at least for taking Instagram photos. Seriously though, this place is literally Wes Anderson on crack, and I am not even joking. If you took a still from here and colour graded it the right way, I think you could easily convince someone that it was actually from the Grand Budapest Hotel. If you're not a film buff, the aesthetics are still pretty spectacular, and I grabbed a delicious hot chocolate to drink while I started reading my book. The book did not match the vibe of the place at all, but that's fine. Even if you don't want to take photos, it's also a very interesting place to watch other people take photos, because I really enjoy watching people take Instagram pics. I think it's one of the most amusing things ever, because I feel like if you took anyone from history and put them somewhere that people were taking Instagram photos, they would be so concerned and really not understand what was going on. I think they would probably think that everyone was very self-obsessed and indulgent, and I guess perhaps it is, but oh well. I then briefly checked out Siam Paragon, the nearby park, and the Platinum Fashion Mall, as at this stage I was starting to feel pretty tired. I think it's really important to not feel like you have to do everything in a day, as I didn't get round all the malls in this area, but also you're not missing out on too much, as all of the malls for the most part are kind of different versions of the same thing.
Found a park in Bangkok, how novel.
The next day I visited a couple of coffee shops near my hostel, as I still wasn't feeling the best and didn't want to do much. These places were also pretty good, but maybe not quite as good as some of the ones at the malls. I had a fantastic day exploring all of these places and really enjoyed my coffees, and would definitely recommend every spot I visited. Chinatown is probably easiest to get to via the Chao Paraya tourist boat, where you can buy a ticket for 30 baht one way. If you get off at the Ratchawongsi Pier, it's only around a 5-minute walk. Once you start to make your way towards Chinatown, you are instantly immersed into the chaos. You can tell that you're there because suddenly the atmosphere changes and there are street vendors and hawker stores everywhere. As someone who had been craving a boba fix and couldn't find one near where she was staying, when I saw this place I immediately decided I had to get one, and oh my goodness, it was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't even a chain, simply just one store, and I was disappointed I didn't get to try it again in Bangkok. It was a great way to get a little energy boost before immersing myself in Chinatown. Essentially, the game plan for Chinatown was just to wander around, go back and forth between the streets, probably get lost, use Google Maps a few times, and if there was any delicious street food, stop and get it. Almost right away, I saw some crumbed shrimp that were absolutely delicious and I think only cost 30 or 40 baht. I need to be honest and say that in Chinatown you are not going to know where you are going at any given time, so it's best to just stop when you're interested in something and try make your way out later. We tried this delicious pancake for 10 baht. The lady was so lovely and it was filled with custard, crunchy on the outside and absolutely delicious. Chinatown is very, very busy, and even though the streets are incredibly narrow, occasionally you will still find that there are cars or motorbikes driving down them. So you always need to keep an eye out and have a good awareness of what's going on around you, even though with all the activity it can be pretty hard to do. Then we stopped for a classic, some spring rolls, and actually saw some people who were on a tour with a local guide eating at the exact same spot, so we figured we were doing a pretty good job of finding decent street food if there was an actual official tour eating there. Now, Chinatown is kind of cut in two by Yaowarat Road, sorry if I mispronounced it. And so far we had been staying on the south side, but we then decided to cross and go to the north and see what that was like. Once again, the atmosphere completely changed. Here, there was less street food and far more ingredients for sale. Locals were doing their shopping, and honestly, I had zero clue what anything was. I would have loved to buy things, but I also didn't have any clue what anything was and what I was actually supposed to do with it. Through all this hustle and bustle, we managed to find a little square and temple, which was just this place of extreme quiet, solitude and reverence, and it was very funny and a massive change to suddenly be taking from the clamouring, condensed environment and then just dunked in a pool of water where everything went quiet. When we felt we were revived from the chaos, we made our way back in and got a barbecue pork bun, which was absolutely amazing. Even though this footage makes it seem short, we did get lost quite a few times, and also when you're stopping to look at something every 10 seconds, you lose all sense of where you are and also all sense of time. Being in a hectic environment like that definitely drains your energy, so it was then time to take the tourist boat back. However, before we did so, we stopped at the Grand China Mall on the corner, and there was a lovely Thai guy there playing piano, specifically Chopin, and I had a little chat to him, and he actually taught himself to play by ear, which is incredibly impressive. And even though the piano was out of tune, he played beautifully, and it was such a wonderful way to finish off the day in Chinatown. I hope you've enjoyed this little insight into my day in Chinatown, and I hope you'll subscribe to join me on the rest of my travels and adventures around the world.
So good morning if you're new here, my name's ARUN and I've been solo travelling Southeast Asia for like 2.5 months or so now. And you know, when you solo travel, you get pretty stinky, and you also don't have anyone to tell you if you're getting stinky. I'm just meaning in general, I'm meaning like smell wise, but also just like in general appearance. So this morning I'm going to go to a coffee shop nearby that I found, get a coffee, journal for a bit, because you know the mental stuff is just as important. Getting crusty is also like a mental and internal thing, and so that needs just as much work. And then after that I'm going to go probably get my nails done, maybe a haircut, definitely a massage, because I've actually been in Asia for 3 months and I haven't even had a massage. Once actually had a foot massage, but that doesn't really count, does it? It's not a full body thing, it's just your feet, and having good feet doesn't do much for you unless you're selling foot pics, and unfortunately it's not a revenue stream of mine. Yeah, I'm going to just have a nice slow day, hopefully look and feel a bit better at the end of it, and and I'm going to bring you along with me. So I'm not doing much right now, I'm just fixing myself up apparently, because the first thing I did this morning was actually just lie in bed and listen to music, because that's just very relaxing, you know, like being like, I have all these things to do, and then you just sit there. I can't really talk properly while I'm doing this, but then you just kind of like sit there and listen and relax. Realize nothing is as urgent as it seems. Also, the hostel I'm staying at does like free breakfast, and it's nice, and they also do free ice cream. I've probably been abusing that more than I should. I don't know how to do my makeup, so I usually just fill in my brows and put on some blush, and that's the end of it. Because I found that I can't even wear mascara without looking like a raccoon.
She was a fairy.
Previously on my walks around my hostel, I had come across a coffee shop called Jedi, but it also said that it was a healing bar. I don't know what gives it that distinction, but the ambience and atmosphere was absolutely wonderful. Maybe it was just the aesthetics, but it was a lovely place to be silent, collect my thoughts, write down how I was feeling, all the clamour that had been building up in my mind. Honestly, I felt so much better after doing some drawing and writing out all my thoughts and feelings. I was easily there for a solid hour or two, really soaking in whatever the healing energy or essence of the place was. Maybe the magical energy comes because it's right between the canal and the Golden Mount, and those two places I think are both reasonably sacred, so at any rate I think the label of healing bar was quite well deserved. I then went to go get my nails done, and unfortunately I did have a half-hour wait time, so I went back to the old Siam Plaza that I'd previously visited and decided to try some ARUN, which was definitely not the vibe. I do not like that stuff, but I hadn't tried it, and I figured that taking care of yourself is also trying new things, but if you don't like them, you don't do them again. My nails turned out lovely. I then walked through the park for a while on my way to go get a smoothie, because what doesn't scream health and self-care like a smoothie?
The lady did a lovely job on my nails, but I'm not going to show them because they're so short at the moment that they just don't actually look good. So.
I also got a little lemon shot, which I really don't know if it does anything, but I mean, maybe there's some merit behind it because I see a lot of people doing it.
I've got like how hard it is to actually take care of yourself and that sort of thing. I booked an appointment for the massage and for the haircut because like I timed some things kind of badly, but that's fine. It's all worked out, it's all sussed, and I'm good. I can do stuff.
But learning to go with the flow is very good for your mental health. I ended up with a 90-minute full body Thai massage, which was pretty nice even though I kind of did book the wrong one. As I walked around to get my haircut, I realised that the sun was going down and I thought I would stop for 5 minutes to watch the sunset. It was going down over the river and it was absolutely gorgeous just sitting there. I really feel like one of the best self-care things you can do is things like watching the sunrise or the sunset and spending a bit of time in nature. To me, there's something about looking at this flow of day and night, life and death, yin yang. I think it reminds us of the possibility of change, which we so often forget, and it's not supposed to be philosophical, but part of my forms of self-care is reading Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, so it's a bit messed up anyway. At any rate, I got my hair cut and the lady did an amazing job. I showed her a photo of me after one of my previous haircuts back in New Zealand, and I did have curtain bangs, but I said I wanted it a bit longer as obviously it requires a lot of styling and I don't really have the opportunity to do that while traveling, but oh my goodness, she did such an amazing job. Even though the day didn't go quite to plan, I did feel a lot better about myself, physically and mentally, by the end of it. So overall, I would say it was a day well spent. Having been travelling Asia for nearly 3 months, I honestly wasn't interested in visiting temples at all, but each time I took the Chao Paraya tourist boat, it caught my eye and I had decided that I had to go there. Whilst a lot of temples do feel the same after a while, I have to say that this one stood out for its incredibly unique structure, attention to detail. As well, it had some beautifully manicured gardens in the surrounding areas. I took the Chao Paraya tourist boat to get there, which costs 30 baht each way. The ferry stops directly at Wat Arun, and I actually would say it's the easiest way to get there rather than walking or taking a car or a bike. As always, make sure you have the appropriate dress and bring cash to pay for the ticket. Now, I have to be honest and say I still don't understand a lot about Thai culture in terms of its history, why certain landmarks exist, and why they worship their given deities that they did in the past or today. However, something I can understand is poetry. Phra Apai Mani, sorry if I've mispronounced it, is a 30,000 line epic poem by Saint Franpu. It's a Thai epic and something I will probably read at some stage, and I'm not going to attempt to sum up the plot, but I thought I'd share a few lines. Put not your trust in any mortal, for their wiles are immeasurable. Even the most tortuous creepers around the hoariest tree are not as crooked as man's heart. True love among mortals is only to be found in the love of a father or mother. The only support you can rely upon is yourself, so you must be careful and wise, my boy. There is no better armor than knowledge. I spent many long hours at Wat Arun, a lot of which were either studying the structure, setting up nice compositions, or people watching. I loved seeing all of the beautiful girls taking photos in their traditional dress, either with their friends, family, or just by themselves. I also enjoyed observing the variety of different tourists, trying to work out where everyone was from. There were a lot of people there, which, to be honest, I really don't enjoy, but being able to wonder about people's backstories and what they're seeing or noticing at that specific place is very fascinating.
It's not straight. It's actually not straight. It's like crooked. It's crooked. It's not straight.
I headed back to my hostel via the tourist boat again, got some pad thai for dinner, and then retired early so I could get a good sleep before my big day at the Grand Palace. Now, the only way to start out a big day is with a coffee, so I stopped in at Kayy Coffee near my hostel and got an iced mocha. This was fantastic. I had not been here before, and they also had a lovely little doggy. I actually walked through to the Grand Palace even though it was a little further from my hostel, and it was actually quite an enjoyable walk. However, I was quite disappointed when I got to the Grand Palace, because technically you are not basically allowed to do anything there other than take photos. You are not allowed microphones, gimbals, selfie sticks, wireless mics, tripods, zoom lenses, drones, or to take videos. The only one of these which I think is personally reasonable is drones. Unfortunately, I could not pull out my DSLR to get some cool shots, but obviously I had my iPhone 15 Pro, which I was going to use to take videos of everything because it doesn't say no phones. Now, this is by far the most expensive temple to visit. It is 500 baht a ticket, and I'm gonna be honest and say I didn't quite feel like it was worth it, but I am glad that I checked it out. When you enter, there's an entire series of murals along the wall which are being redone in places by, I'm guessing, very skilled and well selected artists, but my goodness, these murals are incredible. If I had more understanding of the stories behind them, I think I would have spent hours just staring at each particular piece. As I mentioned earlier, over 8 million people visit the Grand Palace each year, so there are going to be a lot of people around all the time, so don't expect to have lots of space to take your photos or for people to wait for you while you take your photos. At least 20,000 people visit each day, and the portion of those that care about you getting a nice photo is Something which really confused me was actually that there are 3 different areas of the palace you can walk around. There's actually a lot more to see than it initially looks like, and I almost missed an entire section even with a map. I honestly found navigating a bit difficult, so make sure you have seen everything before you leave. If you're unfamiliar with the history, this place has been the residence of the kings of Siam for almost 250 years. As you may expect, it's a pretty luxurious site. Fun fact of the day: the current king of Thailand is the wealthiest monarch in the world with an estimated net worth of between 30 and 70 billion US dollars. To me, that is more mind-blowing than any of the buildings in the architecture I saw. However, I have to say that I love the gardens because satisfying trees get me every time, as well as lots of whites and minimally designed spaces. Perhaps around this area in the second section you may even find enough space to take a few photos without people in them. Additionally, there are a few museums around the complex, and I ended up at a museum dedicated to Queen Sirikit, also known as the Mother of Thailand, and oh my goodness, what a fashion legend and amazing humanitarian and supporter of traditional Thai culture. I am so glad that I visited this place, and I have to say I think she's a woman that a lot more people in the Western world should know about, because from just the small part of her history that I got an insight into, I was in awe of her and many of the things she accomplished. I would definitely recommend visiting it while you're at the palace, particularly if you like fashion, because she was also quite on board with Bulman. After this, I walked back to my hostel, and I have to say I had a great couple of days visiting these 2 sites, even though the latter was particularly pricey. I think they are must visits in Bangkok, which is probably why the latter one is so expensive. At any rate, I hope you've enjoyed seeing these temples, and if you don't want to, you don't have to pay for them now because I kind of showed you what they look like, but if you want to go check them out yourself, feel free to, and I hope you'll subscribe to see the rest of my adventures around Bangkok. Despite its very expensive prices, I had been meaning to stop at SARNIES in Bangkok due to how well reviewed it was and also how lovely the space is. After a short ride on the Chao Paraya tourist boat, one of my favourite things to do in the whole city, I went to this beautifully curated environment that made me feel like I was back in Australia. For anyone who's new here, I'm from New Zealand, so being somewhere that felt a bit more familiar was very charming and made me feel a little bit more at home. Additionally, the food was absolutely incredible. I had an orange mocha and a brownie, and oh my goodness, this was remarkable.
Orange mocha and a brownie, and they look amazing. How good the coffee is, but they're orange. They're orange. Oh my gosh, the orange just gives it like this kick. It's so it's like chocolate orange coffee. I did not think this would work, but it does. It clearly does. How do you do that? I'm very curious to try the most expensive brownie I think I've ever bought in my life. Okay. Wow, I'm so glad I came here. Fantastic.
Even though I have had a lot of street food and Thai food, the brownie was flat out the best thing I ate in Bangkok, I'm not going to lie. I have a sweet tooth and this really satisfied it. I spent quite a lot of time just sitting here journaling upstairs as it was really quiet and there was no one else around for the few hours I was there.
What I like about the brownie is that it's exactly how I like my brownies done, which is not how everyone likes their brownies done. It's like put in the oven for 5 minutes, so like just the outside cooks and the rest of it's basically like uncooked goop. Like, it's fantastic. It's so moist, soft. I love the brownie. It's so good.
This is a life, just me, myself, and I am watching the clouds up in the sky, all but laughing out loud. I'm telling you why I'm living the life, just me, myself, and I used to think that life.
I think Bangkok is such an interesting city because you really can find everything you need and you can do almost anything you want. Whether it's difficult or not, whether it's cheap or expensive is all over the place. But finding spots like this that can make you feel like you're somewhere else are always a welcome experience when you've been travelling long term. After SARNIES, I was still really craving a matcha, which I had not had for some time, so I headed through to Riri's Tea House, previously known as Matcha Mood. This place was also lovely, not in the same way as SARNIES, which I have to be honest and say I do have a real sweet spot for now. However, I did love this place's large windows. Basically, it was windows for walls, as I mean you could observe outside a lot, so I really enjoyed just people watching while I was there. As I had walked between the two places, I had noticed a street food place, so I decided to check it out and ended up getting some takoyaki. Additionally, I also got a boba because I don't believe you can have too many drinks in one day, non-alcoholic of course. From here, I walked back over the river to catch the tourist boat back from the other side. It's easy to forget how big Bangkok is when you're in a specific place, but walking over the river and seeing massive skyscrapers and the heavy traffic reminded me of how wildly chaotic the city is. Even though it's easy to forget when you're in those quiet places, you always still have the atmosphere and energy of the hustle and bustle that never really goes away. So even though I loved it, I don't know if I would be able to spend much more time there. I think short trips are probably the way to go. So even though I loved my time and experiences I had in Bangkok, I was very much ready to head down towards Phuket and Phi Phi.